Hi, my name is Aaron Duff. I'm the principal at Freewater Elementary School.
My name is Amy Muilenburg, and I'm the principal at Grove Elementary School.
And we'd like to talk to you a little bit about the exciting, new, hopefully, elementary school that's happening at Milton-Freewater, Olinger Elementary School, and the Grove Sports Complex. And what we want to talk about a little bit is about some of the process that has gone into just the idea or the conceptual plan that we have. What that started out with was a committee, a facilities committee of not only district folks, including teachers and administrators, but also community folks that showed interest to the district that they wanted to be a part of this group. That group met several times from the announcement in October that we found out about the wonderful gift from the Valley Foundation.
So a highlight for me on being on this facilities committee was being able to go and visit some of the new buildings that have been built in the area. We visited 4 to 6 buildings in the College Place area in Pendleton.
And so what that looked like actually was that group of facility folks getting on a Milton-Freewater school bus and driving over to College Place to Walla Walla, and then that next week it was actually a couple folks that went over to Pendleton. And so we got to see everything from, in Walla Walla, a building that was renovated 10 years ago. And so you see the progression of that construction to College Place, which is just recently having students in it. And so you see some major differences, and we'll talk about a couple of those. And then you see Pendleton, where we walked through a building that's under its first year with students in it, and then another building that still had the sticks, they were still building it. And so you see that whole progression. And so part of that facilities team was, if we have a blank slate, after seeing all of these campuses, and we talk about the things that we want most for our students to make the best education for our teachers, what components of those buildings do we want?
And the community members brought a lot of insight into it too, because they were looking at it not from an educator's lens, but how could we also use these facilities for community events?
And so things like making sure that the basketball court is a full-size court that can be used by the high school, and that it's not in the center of the campus, that it's accessible from a parking lot that's nearby, so that on weekends you can go directly into that facility and don't have to go through the main door of the campus. So there's some things like that that were kind of aha moments, and so it really was a team of 20 or so that came through and said, oh, okay, this is why we need to do that. Another component to that was the pickup and drop off. So we had a bus driver that's on that committee, and they talked about, we have got to make sure that where parents pick up and drop off is separate from where the buses do, so that they're not running into each other. And so little things like that. And so that was one of the exciting things that group got to do, was start with a blank slate, and then take all the parts and pieces and build your own school.
Could you show that?
Yeah.
The pieces?
Yeah. And so what they would do is we would have these scaled drawings, and then we would have scaled pieces. So for instance, we were talking about the bus section. And so you have a scaled picture of a bus to scale, and then you also have classrooms in different configurations that we saw on our tours. And so if you have a classroom set up here, which way do you want the buses? Do you want them going like that or like that? Do you want them on this street or on this street? And so you talk about all of those problems and issues that come up. And so it was a really good opportunity for that group to come up. So they came up with a couple ideas. And then what we felt like coming out of that was not only making sure that group was able to look at that, but we wanted the community to really have the opportunity to grab those. So at least half a dozen events, these were placed out. So one of the events I know was at Grove Elementary School, and we talked about the bond project there, and we had probably in between 30 and 50 people that were there.
Yep.
And they split into groups, and they talked about different aspects and different needs that they needed. And so the other couple spots that they went to was over Christmas break. We had these available at both Burger Hut and Sub Shop on occasions. And so as folks were eating lunch or breakfast, they could sit down and kind of look at what they wanted in a school. And one of the really important things that came out of that was the need for fields. And we know in Milton-Freewater we have active youth, and we have needs for fields. And so originally the Grove area was going to be used for baseball fields. Well, if you take the model drawings and you put them on there, a regulation sized baseball field doesn't fit. And the concern from the community was that that is a huge need, that not only do we need a baseball field, but it needs to be regulation sized because we want to host tournaments, which brings economic development into the region, but also allows our students to have that opportunity to be involved in those tournaments. And so that was one of the reasons why, at that point, that property shifted. The other thing that came out of that community times was we want a spot to be dedicated for each thing. And so what ended up happening was the Grove area will be used for fields, soccer fields. You could do Pop Warner football on those fields. And then the Gib Olinger site will be used for baseball, and it'll have 2 regulation-sized baseball fields or softball you can play on.
I think another important thing is staff. We also put these up in each of the buildings, the elementary buildings, and allowed staff to have input. Obviously, from the staff standpoint, they're going to be looking more at the use of the building itself and their meeting their classroom needs.